former Solicitor General of India, Harish Salve, is joining us live. Mr. Salve, I really appreciate your time, sir. The three-member judge, panel, these were all senior judges, sir. They have submitted their report and they nailed Justice Varma. Would you then say that this is an open and shut case? And what happens to the impeachment proceedings? What, according to you, is the way forward, sir?
Of course, there is an immediate problem. The immediate problem is how is Justice Varma going to be dealt with in a manner that restores some semblance of credibility which has been damaged by this unfortunate incident. But there is a larger problem also. It's the elephant in the room which nobody is willing to talk about. And that is where have our systems gone wrong? There are two things which need to be considered. Why has this problem come to pass? Just think of this, Maria. If this kind of incident had happened with somebody who was a civil servant or somebody who was in political life, by now the whole institution, including the Supreme Court, would have been thinking in terms of special investigation teams and CBI and accountability and monitored investigation. And the court should not create an impression thereby that where it is one of their own, a different set of rules apply. If this had been the house of a minister where this incident had taken place, would it have been enough to say that the minister must now resign and go away? Or by now the media would have been screaming, why is the minister not in jail? Correct? So if a public servant has been found with such large amounts of unaccounted cash, what happens to the criminal justice system of the country? That's one question which looms large. Now you have the Ramaswamy judgment, where Supreme Court said you cannot lodge a police complaint without the permission of the Chief Justice of India. That was a makeshift arrangement till a proper institutional mechanism was set up. Unfortunately, the institutional mechanism which was set up has been trashed by the Supreme Court itself, and they struck down the NJSA. And you have now no institutional mechanism by which accountability is ensured. The second is impeachment. Impeachment continues to be in its old form in the process of parliamentary domain. And there again, the judge will be entitled to, a committee will have to be formed, the judge will be entitled to a hearing, post-impeachment. If you remember in the Ramaswamy case, Mr. Sibal went and appeared to defend Ramaswamy in Parliament. And he argued for 2 hours, 3 hours in Parliament. I don't know if the judge insists on his right for Parliament to hear him, that will have to be done. So, and why? Just because he's a judge. So what I'm saying is impeachment was not meant to deal with problems like this. Today, there is a large amount of cash. Does the Prevention of Corruption Act not apply? It does. What happens if there is unaccounted cash? The presumption of the law is it's deemed to be unaccounted money under the Prevention of Corruption Act, unless you can explain the source. Now, why is the law of the country not taking its course? Why are we even discussing this on TV? Why is there a question of what will happen now? Would there be a doubt if it was any other citizen? And this is the real problem of this case. We have tied ourselves in knots. The judges, I'm sorry to say, have tied themselves in knots. Yes, they've done it out of good intention to protect the independence of judges. But what about protecting the integrity of the system? It is now established that this whole collegium system, it doesn't act with alacrity. How old is the incident now? The incident happened, in November or December or sometime like that? We are now in May.
Mr. Salve, as you pointed out rightly, it has been 3 months. Then what should be done? Should there be a criminal proceeding based on this report, and because this is a panel which was set up by the Supreme Court itself, or can there be only the impeachment proceedings which is scheduled for the next month when the monsoon session of Parliament begins?
Let me be very clear. First of all, after 3 judges, committee has found Justice Varma to be prima facie guilty. I'm deliberately using the words prima facie, of possessing unaccounted cash. What is the delay in now allowing the CBI to register a case and investigate it like any other act of corruption? And that has to be the basis for the impeachment. And it is well settled that civil and criminal proceedings can run side by side. So if the law of the land applies to you, I mean, don't we always use that famous epithet, howsoever high you may be, the law is above you? Why is that not in play? And they should do it. And what are we waiting for? I mean, unfortunately, impeachment is the only process we have, so we have to work it. But I think there has to be a debate in the country. Do we need to revive the collegium?
Yes.
Do we need to revisit the Supreme Court judgment by which Supreme Court said any interference with the collegium system takes away from the independence of judges? And where are we left today? We are left with a dysfunctional system.
Yes, that's right, sir. You have raised a number of questions, particularly with regards to the appointment of these judges. Do you think the cleaning up of the judiciary has to happen from within, or the executive, legislature, as they have clearly intervened, as you know, legislature will be conducting the impeachment proceedings? Then what happens to the separation of powers?
See, the power to amend the constitution is only with Parliament. Okay, so if Parliament has to make a law, it's only Parliament which can amend the constitution to put an institutional mechanism in place for judicial accountability. So there is no question of distance between the institutions. Parliament will be doing its job. And I remember a very powerful statement made in a very gentle voice by the then Attorney General Shri Lal Narayan Sinha, who was one of the most respected lawyers, a lawyer who I've really looked up to. When I was appearing with Mr. Palkhiwala in the Minerva Mills case, which challenged 42nd Amendment. And you know what Mr. Lal Narayan Sinha said? He said, it is true that without the Supreme Court, the freedoms in the Constitution cannot survive. But he said, don't ever forget, without Parliament, democracy and the Supreme Court will not survive. So each institution has its place, and the primacy of Parliament has to be recognized. Except in narrow cases where the Supreme Court finds an act of Parliament to be unconstitutional, each institution must have its place. And where it comes to making laws, Parliament and Parliament alone makes laws. So there is no question of being a judge in its own cause. Doesn't the Supreme Court decide cases involving people in public life? Doesn't the Supreme Court decide cases involving judges? So that's not an argument. Parliament has to address A, the problem of Justice Varma, B, the problem of a system which has become so dysfunctional that 4 months or 5 months after the incident, we are discussing what should happen next. Nobody knows. No, there's no clarity on what is to happen next. So, on that question, on what you've asked me just now, on that doesn't, as they say, the tail hangs on that question, right? We are in a situation where we don't know what to do with this. Why? Would you be asking me this question if cash had been found in a minister's house, if cash had been found in a secretary to the government's house? No. Why are you asking me this question when it comes to a judge? That's the point which we need to address.